Hi, thank you so much for joining me on my journey towards greater clarity and connection. I really feel like this is such a journey. It's like this. I got a phone call last night that two of my kids need to go into quarantine, and that was like a whole other ride. And then this morning, suddenly it's not so clear, and I spent hours on the phone with the Ministry of Health and trying to understand what is our status. Story is still unconcluded, so right now I'm home with the two kids and really trying to stay on track with clarity and connection and reaching for that. And it's a climb. It's work. I want to share with you a piece of clarity that I gained last night. And the interesting thing about clarity is that it brings with it an understanding that what happened, that is the particular circumstance or interaction or what they said that happened, isn't actually the issue, but that the issue is something that's happening internally. And that's what's causing all of the really challenging feelings that are coming up, and the charge and the judgments. And if we take a step back, we can often see that there's a pattern that isn't specific to that interaction. And that interaction is just an example of a pattern that probably shows up in a lot of different places in our lives. I have a hard time asking people for things. And it might be asking for help with something, or it might be asking somebody to stop doing something that is a problem for me, or it might be asking somebody to take into consideration something that I need before they make a decision about something, if it'll affect me. And I have lots of different excuses, and I'm going to call it excuses because I think sometimes it's justified, but more often than not, it's really an excuse to protect me from the vulnerability of putting out what I want. Well, excuses like protecting somebody else from needing to say no. So if I ask you to babysit for me tonight, and you don't really want to, but you're not really comfortable saying no, and so maybe you'll say yes, even though you don't really want to, then me not even asking you, it's protecting you from either needing to say no, that's a challenge for you to put out, or from giving something half-heartedly that you don't really feel like giving. Another example of an excuse would be, that I don't want to impose on anybody. Well, like people have a right to make their own decisions about what they're willing to give and what they're not willing to give. And often, if it's somebody who's close to me, they'll be happy to give me something, or to support me in some way, or to take into consideration something that they hadn't considered before. And it's not because they're thoughtless, it's because not everybody thinks of everything. So I'm calling those excuses. And I can give a really small example. Like, let's say I love hugs. I love hugs. It's like one of the ways that I feel held and supported, and it really works for me. And sometimes I'll want a hug from my husband, or my husband is a good example. And I won't ask him for one because I want him to volunteer it. I want him to offer me a hug. And in a way, the piece of clarity that I gained last night was that by my unwillingness to step up and ask for what I want, I'm actually imposing on him I'm externalizing both responsibility for seeing what my need is, and the incentive to offer. So it's kind of a mirror of the two things. So I can say what I want and ask for what I want, and then they can respond to me. But if I'm unwilling to do that, then I'm going to be resentful of the fact that they're not figuring it out all by themselves. So I'm actually putting a lot more responsibility on them. Not just the responsibility to not say no, or to say no if they need to, but also the responsibility to intuit what my needs are. So it was kind of a big aha for me. I don't know how it sounds to you right now, but because I am so comfortable in the independence and being capable, and it's harder for me to ask for help and accept help, that realizing that that really is the imposition of waiting for somebody else to figure out what I want and then offer it. And being resentful when that doesn't happen is a good indication that I need to be willing to be more vulnerable and ask for what I need. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and we're going to keep on climbing together. Please add your comments, hit like to the video, subscribe, let me know what you think, and share your stories with me about where you're looking for that, where you're finding a lack of clarity, where you're finding greater connection. I'd really like to hear from you.